Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
I've known of today's guest for a number of years, and mostly through LinkedIn and manufacturing. She and I are planning on meeting each other in person very soon, but you're in for a real treat today with our guest, Nicole Wolter. She is not only president and CEO of HM Manufacturing, she's on the board of directors for American Gear Manufacturers Association, the chair for the Technology and Manufacturing Association, and on the board for the National Association of Manufacturing. I ask her when she sleeps, and apparently she does, but she also gets a lot of stuff done. She started in chemical engineering. That's what she majored in college, and ended up coming back to run her dad's business. And I think if any of you have seen her, heard her, or know her, you know that she is a multi-dimensional manufacturing leader, and we can all learn so much from her. Today's episode is jam-packed. We cover everything from putting yourself out there in social media, to marketing your business, to turning your business into a brand that attracts the right talent, and really what to do if you're not an extrovert like her. How do you go about doing that? So everybody, sit back, relax, and enjoy. You're going to learn a whole lot from Nicole Wolter. Everybody, here we grow. So what a treat. It's been a hot minute since you and I got together. We have yet to get together in person, by the way, which I'm looking forward to doing.
I feel like that's your fault and not mine. So I'll just say that just to take the blame off of me.
Okay. Well, my question really, though, is when do you have time to sleep?
I don't know, but I do, because if I don't sleep, I get insanely cranky. And it's not good for anybody around me or in like a 5-mile radius, because then I get, road rage and all the things. But I sleep because I've always been someone that thought I need to do things that make me happy. And there's going to be times where I'm going to be super, super crazy at work. And then my private life suffers. And then it it ebb and flow. So every other day, I change where the focus is. And I think that's where I'm able to do the things that I do, is just kind of figuring out what is gonna be the happy moment. And sometimes it's work, sometimes it's horses, sometimes it's golf, sometimes it's dinner, sometimes it's too many glasses of wine, and then you go to work late, it's all the things. But I think that everyone gets carried away thinking that, work is insanely essential, and it is, but it's not, because you have to be happy to go to work every day. And I'm on so many boards and I travel a lot, and so things suffer from time to time, but the thing that does not suffer is my sleep.
I think that's fantastic. That's a great message for everybody. I know Ariana Huffington and a lot of other folks have been talking a lot about sleep the last couple of years. And I too have found that, back in the day, I would literally sometimes work 24 hours a day, depending on the workload and projects and whatnot. And I have found, as I've gotten older, I have to have that sleep. It is essential.
It's imperative. And if that's where all your good ideas come from, is when you feel rested.
Yes.
There's nothing worse than only having a few hours of sleep and then going to work and everything is super irritating, including my dad. So, it just, for the sanity of everybody, it's just, you need it, right? That's why we have to have it. I think as women too, I read a study that as women, we actually need more sleep than men do. And so we need about 7 to 8 hours to function properly, which sounds about right.
Yes, I totally agree. Well, and I think an important thing I want to share with the listeners for this particular episode, because I feel like you have a big presence in the manufacturing world, and at least in my neck of the woods, but I would assume that most people listening to this have either heard of you or seen you on news channels, at trade shows. Girl, you are everywhere. And I think one thing that I've learned about you, and I think this is important for other manufacturers to hear, is, I don't know how to explain this. It's kind of like that. It looks really great on Instagram, if you will, and you think that someone's life is perfect and
Yeah.
always polished, and that Nicole is sitting at her desk with her feet up and her heels and her nice dress, and you know, your hair's always perfect, and like you're doing interviews. And I think it's important to dispel the myth
Yeah.
that you do work very hard on that side of the business. But I also know you roll your sleeves up,
Yeah.
just like yesterday. I had some people that didn't, I'm having some people that aren't here. You're on the floor, like you're doing the work if it needs to be done. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a really, I don't know, important message to share.
I think so, right? I mean, I think with social media is everyone gets so caught up with what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, I remember doing the exact same thing of questioning, like, so how did people actually get to that point? How are they getting interviews? How are they getting, all of these followers? And you kind of have to, and like, why are they being asked on boards? And it was one of those moments where I had to like take a step back and actually focus on the reality. And the reality in the beginning for me was that the business was struggling when I first came to HM. And I needed to put in a lot of work. So I did precision machining classes. I am NIM certified. I did CAD classes. I went out on the shop floor because I needed to understand everything. And only after 5 years, I finally was like, you know what? I have a really good story and I can talk about it now. And I think people would listen because now I can walk the walk and talk the talk. So to this day, like you said, I go out on the shop floor and there's so many times where this hair is so full of dry shampoo that it is the most disgusting thing. And I don't know why people come into my office, but it isn't glamorous, but I try to put that out there because I do want people to see a different side of manufacturing. I do want people to see state-of-the-art equipment, and then I do dress up, and I am a girl, and I love my heels, 6-inch heels, and I love my dresses, and I love to look like a woman, and I love to feel like I'm in my feminine energy. But I still go out on the shop floor and I still work the machines, and I want to be visible and I want to help the team, and I am always full of oil. I used to buy these beautiful shirts, and now I buy my stuff at Target just because oil is always getting on it. And so it's more important for me to be out there. But I do know when I schedule these types of meetings and interviews and stuff like that, that I need to be washed and I need to put my makeup on. And so I have an entire new set of makeup that's at the company so that when I do have last minute stuff I have to jump on for a TV segment or something, I at least can look normal. But it's not like that. I mean, I'm in slippers. Like this is reality. I'm doing phone calls and I'm making things work even when I'm not at the company. I'm always there. I'm always around. And I think it's okay for people to put personality into things.
Yeah.
But I still, like you said, I roll up my sleeves. I'm always out there. At one point, we didn't have a shipper. Like we were constantly trying to find new shipping people, shipping and receiving. And I was out there doing it all day. And I was out at 7 a.m. having to do it till 3 o'clock. And of course, there's like certain parts that are way too heavy for me. So I would ask the guys to help. But it's really good for them to see that even though I'm sitting in my office and I'm, very visible and I'm on TV and I'm on podcasts and I do a lot of crazy things like go to DC and do policy, I still work. And I need them to see that. And it's good for me too, because a lot of times I go out there, you start to daydream and you look around, you start to see, that doesn't look right. Or why is that taking so long? Or man, my feet really hurt. Do we need new mats? Like it's good for me to also be out there to figure out what does the team really need, right? Because they're not always going to come to me and be like, hey, we need new mats or we want a new stool or this is going on. I think they don't want to think that they're complaining. And so it's good for me to constantly go out there and refresh what I'm seeing out there too.
So important. I feel like that's such a lesson in being an empathetic leader.
Yeah.
Right? You walk a mile in their shoes and then you actually know what that feels like. And And I think the other cool thing that you're showing other manufacturers is like, I meet a lot of, I mean, the majority are small, right? The majority of manufacturers are small. And so many that I run into are like the best kept secret in their niche. And I think the reason is they're not visible.
Yeah.
They're not usually adept at marketing. They're not messaging anybody. They're not active in social media, and they're not visible like you are as a leader, where you took, like you said, you put in the work, and then you said, okay, I've got a story worth sharing. And you put yourself out there, which
Yeah.
scares the shit out of most people.
Oh my God, no, I love it. It's so funny. So I just posted today one of like a snippet of my speech that I did for my chairman dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. I was getting texts left and right and being like, were you nervous? Like, how do you do it? And I'm like, no, like I thrive on that. Like I'm a crazy person that I love the stage. I don't know if that's healthy, but I love it. And I would rather be scared shitless because that means that I'm doing something and it's changing something versus me just staying in a rut and being like, well, this is normal. And so I feel like that's where I differ, right? So my dad is completely different generation. So he loves status quo. He likes that the same thing is happening every single day. I freak out. And I expect a lot too. So I like change. And I think that's why I'm on a lot of boards and why you think I don't sleep is because I like to keep evolving and moving and shaking and marketing. And, we all keep crying about people not being interested in manufacturing. Well, what's the best way to showcase it than social media, TikToks, Instagram? Like it's become such a thing where we have these amazing social media platforms that are so visible to people around the world.
Right.
And we should be utilizing that versus just kind of hanging out in our office. And I know that everyone is super busy, and I'm not claiming that people are just sitting in their office doing nothing, but I think it's okay, like every so often, to kind of, shake it up a bit.
Totally. And this was the epicenter of this particular episode is I feel like you are demonstrating to let's say that there is a number of introverted owners, presidents, CEOs, leaders, manufacturers who are listening to this. And they say, okay, well, easy for her. She apparently is very outgoing. She likes to do shit that scares her. I'm more like her dad, right? I'm not super comfortable with, I don't know, how I look or how I speak, or I'm not sure what the right thing is to do, or, I want to call them excuses, but I think they're legitimate in people's minds. I think we've all been there at some point where we felt afraid of something, right? Afraid to put ourselves out there. What would be your advice for owners, manufacturing leaders like that, who it's hard for them to relate to you and your personality, but I'm here to tell them they need to start adapting.
Okay.
So how would we help them?
Yeah. So I think they need to find someone that is comfortable doing it. There's totally going to be someone in your company. It may be a VP. It could be a sales director. It could be a marketing person. It could be an accounting person, which would be interesting, but you never know. I mean, there's always going to be someone in your company that is totally fine with being fun, being outgoing, but yet sharing a message about what products they do, what the company is all about, their manufacturing services and capabilities. You're always going to find someone that's willing to do it. And I'm going to assume that if they're in sales, they're more than happy to do it because that's pretty much their MO, right? They're very much just out of the box. They're big picture thinkers as well. And so I would suggest finding a couple people, doing it that way, and, making sure that you're okay with the dialogue, right? You could script it out. You could say, this is what I'm comfortable saying. This is what we should be getting across. We're not comfortable with this because we have NDAs in place, or, we can't show this for certain reasons. But I think they could have the final say, but then, start somewhere. It could be a picture. It could be a quick video. It could just be anything, and just see how it goes. I've seen a couple TikToks that I think are so funny. And you see like the CEO that's like a curmudgeon like my dad, who's just sitting at his desk and just like so over it. And then you see these like Gen Zers come in and they're doing all these like quirky dances and just stupid things. And it's funny because the CEO doesn't have to do anything. He just sits there, and it has gained so much traction. It has gotten so many likes and views. And that's the kind of stuff that you want. You don't necessarily need to be a big participant, but I think just like being there in the background or encouraging people that are really liking that kind of thing, like marketing people, like we all like to do these types of stuff. And even if it's a small company, I'm small. I have 25 people, and I probably am like 10 people wrapped up in one when it comes to like marketing and sales and all the things that I do, right?
Yep.
But we're 25 people, and the majority of us in the team are out on the shop floor. So it's me and it's my Gen Z Kiki, who graduated from U of I just this past summer. So she's been with me for about like 9 months. And so it's just us, and we play off of each other. And so I think that's another thing too is, find someone that's on that younger side, someone that's maybe coming from community college who just graduated, who could help along that social media, maybe an internship. That's how I originally started, was getting the interns in and being like, hey, I don't have time for social media, but you guys are so savvy when it comes to all these new algorithms and doing these cool reels and stuff like that. Have at it. Now, they couldn't post anything without me saying yay or nay and looking at the captions and the hashtags and all of that. But it gave them excitement that they were being a part of something. And then the guys out on the shop floor really got into it, and they all want to be Insta famous now, which is so funny. But, I think just starting small. So if you're not comfortable with it, find other people that are, have an internship, do marketing. If you don't have a marketing person, have an internship that is marketing, and start slow. I mean, I remember when we first started on LinkedIn, we had like 5 followers, and I was just like, oh my God, we're never going to get there. And it takes a long time. It took years. It wasn't like a year. All of a sudden we had like 3,000 followers. It takes time. And some days it hits. I came up with this random idea about the robot and like watching it kind of go. And then Kiki was like, we should fast forward it. And so it like does all these like cool, fast movements. And it has gotten over 300,000 views on Instagram. We have gotten over 10,000 likes. And at that point, we had gotten over, I think it was like 2,500 followers in one day. But we started this Instagram in 2018. So it just tells you how long it takes. And we're not going to see sales from it. And I think that's probably another reason why a lot of people don't want to do it, is because it's time, right? It's time, it's money, it's effort. And you're not going to really see the sales kind of go in line with what you're doing. But the more visible you are, the more annoying you are on social media, people are going to find you, because when one person that you're connected to likes it, it shows up on your feed.
Yep.
And that's how it is, right? It's like a spider web effect. And so you may not see it in the forefront, but in the background, it is generating sales in some like awkward way, but it does.
And I think that's a beautiful point. And I'm glad that you said that, because it's exactly what I was thinking. Again, to the person listening who is resistant, I call them the resistors. I think it stems from fear. Not knowing, I don't know what to do with marketing. I don't know where to start. I don't have a huge budget. And like we were just saying, I'm not good at it. So to help them out, our suggestions are find somebody that is. There's somebody at your company, right, who could be the face or the voice. 2, learn. You have to start learning, right? You didn't know how to run every machine until you learned.
Yeah.
So I think this is that same thing. So you need to learn. And also the point you made is this does not take 5 minutes. You are not Insta famous. That's not really the point of all this. This takes time and effort, and it's a long game, just like growing a business.
Yeah.
And my other question about that was, let's say the sales aspect. I get this a lot from people. Well, are we going to get direct sales if we spend time on social media? And to your point, what advice would you give to them because I agree with you. I think it's the most important thing is the exposure.
Yeah.
First and foremost, right? People have to know you exist. So they have to find you. Then they're able to like you and trust you before they will ever buy from you.
Right. So it's a credibility, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. And this has happened on multiple occasions, my Gen Zers or my interns come in and they start looking up people. If they don't have a website, not necessarily a website, but like a up-to-date functioning, real spiffy website that's like maybe a one page or like that old kind of website, they're done and they say, no, this isn't a legitimate company. And even though it is a legitimate company,
to them, it's not.
Bored by what they see, that to them, it's so old school and it's so backward thinking that they want nothing to do with dealing with that type of supplier, which boils into today's world, right?
Yep.
As we start to get the younger generations, I'm a millennial, and then you have the Gen Z, and everyone that starts to come up, those are going to be your buyers, right? Those are your engineers. That's your, procurement. That's everything is going to be the millennials and the Gen Z. And so we think differently. We like to see things differently, but we also like take our time. So we'll watch something and we'll follow something, but it takes us a while to be like, okay, because you look at reviews, right? You look at comments, you look at a lot of things, and you start to say, okay, they've been posting consistently. This looks interesting. I like that. Oh, look at the team. It's about showing more than just your products. And so over time, you start to say, okay, let's send them an RFQ or let's get on the phone with them and let's start asking questions. But you're not going to see it immediately, just like a normal sales cycle. You're going to call someone in a cold call. You're not going to immediately get something to quote right away. That's not how it works. And if it is, God bless, and I want to talk to you. But I have never been in a moment where you cold call and they're actually genuinely open to listening to you right off the bat, right? It takes a few times. It takes a few moments. And it's credibility. They're going to watch what you do. And so it's never going to be an overnight success. Social media is going to take time, but I think what people need to remember is it's going nowhere. It is only going to be more crazy and more in your face as time goes on. I mean, look how TikTok has exploded. Right. It's literally where people now go to like learn how to cook meals in 3 minutes, how to, do random house appliance things that I never knew, that I still am really upset that after all these years of me being 37, I still can't believe I had to learn it on TikTok. Like, why did we go to school? It's like some of those interesting videos. And that's where we can start showcasing manufacturing or your products. I mean, that's what I do. And it's never going to be where you're going to pick up a phone and they're going to say, yes, we found you on LinkedIn or we found you on Instagram. But I know that that's how it happened because when they click on my website, I know there's a reason why all of a sudden they decided to do that. It's the more in your face with tact, right? Like, I don't think just constantly sending out social media posts is appropriate. Right. I think it needs to be very mindful and thoughtful of what you're trying to get across. But it needs to get done because millennials and Gen Z, that's what we are. We're just in social media. That's it. And that's all we're doing. And so if you don't want to get on that bandwagon, you're going to miss out because that's really where, the next generation of buyers are coming from. And literally your engineers, they're coming out of college and immediately getting these jobs. And they're the ones that are tasked to say, okay, we need to find a supplier to produce X, Y, Z. Where do you think they're going? They're not Googling. They're like immediately going on social media to figure who to use.
Exactly. And I think we need to wrap up. And I think the last thing we should talk about is how all of this kind of stuff impacts closing the skills gap. Because I know you work with McHenry High School. I know that you're very involved with, bringing the next generation in, exposing them to manufacturing, and it's critical. But do you feel like that being putting yourself out there, let's say, like you do, even if somebody did it at a 10th of what you do, right? Just put themselves out there, their company, get social or get someone to help you get social. Don't you feel like that this elevates your brand beyond just a company, right? You're a brand,
Yeah.
you're a promise. You have this personality and it draws people in to want to work with you, not just
Yeah.
buy from you.
Right. Well, I think it's important though, when you're talking about the skills gap, right? And we're trying to make manufacturing cool and sexy and all the fun things to get people excited about it because no one is, right?
Right.
'Cause no one knows about it. And I think it's really important that you go to your local high schools and you ask, even if they don't have a manufacturing program, they all have business programs now. And you ask if they have internship programs and then you bring them in. And like I said, 25 people, there is zero reason for me to have any interns ever because there's really not much for me to showcase when we're small and we don't have divisions. And it's something that I had to curate along the way. And it was great for me to start bringing them in one by one for different stuff. So one is for business. So it's marketing, it's sales, it's analytics, it's, finance, it's things for them to understand the process of business. And then the ones that have manufacturing programs, I bring in, and depending on their age, right? So if they're 18, then they can work on a machine. But if they're not, then they shadow every division that's at the company, or they do R&D, or they're an inspection. And it's important, or they do the engineering side, which is all CAD and CAD CAM and all that fun stuff. And I have a year-round internship program. And at any given time, I have 3 or 4 kids. And I think that's important because it does take a lot of time, right? And you also have to make sure that you have people that are willing to allow them to be shadowed, right? So if someone on the shop floor is like, okay, we're so busy. I'm like, I know, but you know what? It's just, they're excited about manufacturing. Like, don't you want to show them like all the fun things that you're doing and how cool it is? And like, yeah. And then, you reward them by saying like, okay, so thanks for doing that. You can take off early on a Friday. I'll pay you your whole day. Like, you got to incentivize people if you're going to do this internship program with them. But I do think it is so important to start opening your doors and getting people to come in that's in high school so they understand what manufacturing is. So, for an example, Kiki, she came to me right out of college. I threw her in and she's like a deer in headlights, like so confused. I took her to IMTS with me. She was blown away with how amazing, how big and vast and technically advanced manufacturing is, because it's a different spectrum of manufacturing that we all don't see. Right. And so when you get to do that and you open their eyes to what it is, it changes their mindset. And she's like, this is so cool. I never thought, I never knew. Wow, like trade shows are awesome. Like, I can't believe how big the machines are, how expensive they are, the people that are here, on and on and on. She couldn't stop talking about it. And so that's what it's about, is I bring in these interns for 6 weeks, a couple hours a week, right? So sometimes it's a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday for about 3 to 4 hours, but they learn something and they get to see a completely different side of what they think manufacturing is, to how awesome it truly is versus how they thought it is. And I think that it just changing a mind, just one mind, starts to really create impact, because these kids talk. They're on Snapchat and I see them and they're snapping things and they're sending it off to their friends, and just a little bit of that interaction. And they're like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm at this manufacturing company. Oh, I'm working on social media. Like the reel that I just did. That's how it starts to change little by little. But you have to create a buzz and you have to create a scenario and a space for these kids to come in and learn. And it's time consuming, but if we want people to be manufacturing, we have to do that.
Take the time.
You do.
Well, it's like the compound effect. Like Darren Hardy talks about that from Success Magazine. And I'm a huge believer in it, because it's first you have to start, right? Start somewhere, but start something. And like you said, yes, it takes extra time. I don't necessarily have the time, but I'm going to make the time. And it doesn't have to be a year-long internship. Like I think what you just said is really important. 6 weeks.
Yep.
6 weeks, couple hours a week. They tell their friends and so on and so on, like the old Fabergé shampoo commercial. I'm probably dating myself, but they and so on and so on. Like people talk,
Yeah.
and I think that it's never been more prevalent than it is now with Gen Z, Gen Y, like and millennials. I think with every generation, it's, and like you said, it's not going away. It's just going to continue to grow. So jump in now. And I think the other cool thing that you're demonstrating is, I always say, good marketing and leadership and growth start from the top down and from the inside out. And I feel like you are showing other manufacturers how to do this, right? Like you said, this is not something that, like, if you are at the top and you're the resistor, that shit rolls downhill.
Oh, it totally does. Yeah.
Right. So I'd like to encourage everybody listening, if you feel like you're Nicole's dad and not Nicole, to start somewhere, but start something, and don't be afraid to put yourself and your company out there, because no one else has your story.
Yeah.
Right. No one else studied chemical engineering like you and ended up running a manufacturing shop.
I know. I don't
right.
I don't go together,
but it's so cool. And I think the other thing that you've shown me and everybody else who is even aware of you, like you said, you got to keep changing it up, and you keep doing stuff that scares you. Even if you're super comfortable with being in the spotlight like you are, I'm pretty sure that, if you were never on a board, then you get on a board. Ooh, I've never done this before. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You start a TikTok channel. Never done that before. I don't know what to, it's like each thing, bringing in interns. So I want to thank you, truly, for inspiring me as a woman, as someone else in the manufacturing sphere, and really for showing people, how to lead with heart, with creativity, and just putting yourself out there. So I thank you.
Oh, thank you. That means so much to me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And for you listening, if you are not already following Nicole, especially on LinkedIn, please do that, and follow HM Manufacturing everywhere social channels are, because you will get a lot of good ideas, inspiration, and now that she is glamorous, but there's also that other side to her, that real life, hard worker, roll up her sleeves kind of gal. I think that's super important for people to see that you can be both, but you're putting in the hard work, and I'm pretty sure I can say it's paying off.
I hope so.
Well, girl, you're welcome back anytime.
Woohoo!
I appreciate you.
We need to have like a cocktail as we do it. I feel like it would get real interesting.
I think so. Okay, so that's a deal. You're on.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.